Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Brony Debates Live. I hope you're all having a wonderful start to your weekend here and in good health and all that fun stuff. We've got a pretty interesting topic tonight, one of which that I know almost nothing about, if not absolutely nothing about. So I'm looking to get educated here, and I'm looking to make an utter fool of myself at least once. So we're going to be talking about elitism in music, and to make sure we got a nice conversation going, we brought in the gentleman who suggested tonight's topic, Mr. Pony Cordero. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Alrighty then, and I made sure to bring on some people who also know about music. Now, I had initially tried to get, the people that I knew were the best at music and knew the most about music, but I got stuck with these guys. So we've also got CapsLock joining us tonight. How are you doing tonight, Caps?
Good. How's it going, everybody?
Looks like we're doing pretty good. And we got Cruizer Brony, who does Hoof Rock on his own channel. And if you're not subscribed to that, please check that out. How are you doing tonight, Cruizer?
Doing better now that I had a couple of days off from work. Got to go to the parks and have some fun. I'm doing better.
Alrighty then, and special guest joining us tonight. I reached out to possibly my most favorite of the Brony musicians, Mr. 4Everfreebrony. How are you doing tonight, sir? Thank you for coming on such short notice.
I am doing great, and you're just trying to butter me up.
Well, no, I don't pull any of that dishonesty in here, but it's definitely a close tie between you and well, he was Evening Star, but then he sort of left and became Marcus Warner. I'm a sucker for anything with strings. Anyway, before we get into the meat and potatoes here, let me give a big shout out to all of my very generous supporters on Patreon who make my content easier to make and my bills easier to pay, especially those guys on the $10 and up tier. They are the lovely Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Sodden Girder, Senko, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, Stephen A. Wilson, Rein-Kun, Princess Sunshine Sparkle, Bootleg Bard, Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series, and Pony Cordero, who suggested tonight's topic and is joining us tonight. Please check out all their links in the description. They make some pretty good stuff too. If you want to get on the show, I'd love to have you. $1 a month on Patreon gets you into the server where you can be on this show. Now then, Mr. Cordero, can you explain the topic for us tonight? Tell us what we're talking about here.
Yes, I can. I thought of this topic because it's one of the most enraging things that I could imagine, and that is elitism in art in general. But art is a bit broad, so I narrowed it to music, which is still incredibly broad, as I'm sure we'll find out by the many different types of music we'll have represented tonight. And before we get started, is tonight a Scotch or a bourbon night for me, Brawny? I was going to leave it up to you.
I think tonight is a green tea night. I've got some with strawberry.
That was not
and
one of the
lemon.
options.
Yeah, but
I'm already drinking green tea.
Okay.
I already had that. All right, so Scotch it is. I heard Scotch. All right. So elitism in music really, really sucks because elitism can be gatekeeping, but for people who want to get into music, but also elitism can just kind of cut people off from really, really good music, and also it can stop really good music and good art from being appreciated and recognized for what it truly should be. So I have a lot of examples coming from a classical music and orchestral music training that I want to bring tonight, and hopefully people have a lot of other instances that they can talk about where elitism just kind of ruins one of our favorite crafts.
And I tend to sit on the opposite side of the spectrum. I don't. Well, I don't know. I'm probably would qualify as an elitist to a certain degree, but I definitely believe that there should be standards at the very least in art as well as music. So if anything, if I contribute anything to the conversation tonight, it's going to be in that general direction. Caps, why don't you tell us a little bit about your musical experience?
Yeah, so I was a music education major for one whole semester, all the way back in the fall of 2016.
Oh God, there's two of us.
Yeah, no, it's okay. There's only like 1.5 of us. I wound up changing my major after the first semester.
Good call.
Yeah, 5 years for 40K a year isn't not what I'm after.
To give you some perspective, my older sister went to Cornell for that kind of money and became a literal doctor.
Oh, that's a lot more money. That's more like 150K.
But anyway, there were a lot of factors that led me to switching out of the musical discipline, and I'm not entirely sure if this qualifies as elitism in music. I mean, because I feel like there was a sense of elitism kind of in that community in the College of Music, but I don't necessarily feel like it was connected as much to the music itself as it was just the attitude of being a musician.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Cruizer, can you tell us a little bit about your perspective before we really get into it here?
Sure. I didn't become a musician until later in life. I mostly just started out as basically a fanboy of rock music. My first concert was back in 1998, and I've been going to them ever since. It wasn't until I turned roughly 14 that I picked up a guitar and started playing. And just being in the metal crowd and just seeing this huge divisiveness between metal fans, what was popular and considered quote unquote underground, and just the disdain people had, it was just really unpleasant. So much so that around 2014 that I actually started falling out of it. And it wasn't until maybe a year or so later that I started feeling that itch again. And with the rise of so many critics on YouTube, including rock music, I'm still seeing that elitism, but it's just not as vocal.
Alrighty then. And Goonie, as you had me refer to you at the end of the, before we went live here, can you give us a little background on your musical experience, and have you experienced this kind of issue in your time composing?
Sure. So, I mostly come from an acoustic background. My parents raised me on, rock and roll. Several years of piano lessons, and became a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist over time through choir experience. And I don't know. I guess that there is like a little bit. There's not much in the fandom, like when it comes to like a bunch of I'm just talking about in the fandom for now, but like there's not much that I've experienced in the fandom when it comes to elitism in music. But like there have been a couple instances where people thought like that you would people try to like kindly refuse a collaboration or something, and they say it's because like you're not. I experienced this a little bit earlier in the fandom. They refused to collab because I knew that I wasn't experienced enough, but like but I felt like this wasn't exactly, it wasn't sure. They probably had standards, but like I don't know. My words are very, very, I'm all over the place right now, and I have trouble with words, but the fact is that, there are some musicians sometimes who have standards that are a little bit too high, so they don't try to incorporate certain people into their own music for collaborations or whatever like that. And I don't know about I have no idea if some people feel any prejudice towards like certain genres or anything like that. I know I have my preferences, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the talent that it takes to make certain genres. For example, I don't like rap. I actually can't stand it. Always leaves me with bad vibes. But I appreciate the talent that it takes to make, because it is not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah,
but no, that's me.
You do what you want, but one of the main songs I use as an intro for one of my series was it's called it was called Bringer of the Sun by a guy who's not in the fandom anymore, called Voodoo Pony. And I found that song through another Brony artist who sampled it for his rap song called Champion of Day, which loosely themed around Celestia. I love that song. If you're open to it, I might show it to you later. But but when people say good rap, that's the first thing I come up with.
Nice.
Yep. So, let me ask you this out of curiosity: have you been a part of and participated in any other fandoms either before and or after you started composing Brony music?
Just briefly, but not really. Not enough to even get noticed, really.
Okay.
I have made a couple FNAF songs, and that's about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
that's literally it.
And you didn't collaborate for those two?
I did not collaborate. I have actually, now that I think about it, I have participated a little bit in the I don't know, is what's it called? Dang it, Animal Crossing. Is that part of the furry fandom or not really?
I mean,
Yes.
Bugs Bunny
Okay.
is technically part of the furry fandom, even
Sure.
though I don't want to admit it.
Okay. All right, sure. So no, I helped out with an Animal Crossing song. That's the extent of my
Was
outreaching fandom.
Is Jessica
was
Rabbit
Follow
free?
You Down an Undertale song?
No, Follow You Down was it's actually a Stranger Things song.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yep.
So, my follow-up question was going to be to that is how does Brony compare to other fandoms? But if you don't really have a lot of other experience in other fandoms, that might not be as relevant. But does anybody else have any other experiences with other fandoms, and how does Brony compare to that?
From the music side?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that maybe just because my experience is more limited to MLP, but I feel like that had the most music to come out of it that I've seen of most of modern fandoms in the past decade or so. Undertale was pretty close. A ton of music came out for Undertale. Arguably Sonic, just because there's been so much time to get under Sonic. But Ponies was unique just because of how quick and how much music exploded from like 2011 to 2016. Era.
If I may also interject here, there's also I've been told by many people in the furry fandom, so there are loads of musicians in the Brony fandom who are also part of the furry fandom and try to be more, like Crusader, and I think what's his name, Stealing Shades, I think.
Gato Paint.
Yeah, Gato Paint. Yeah, there we go. They've told me.
There's more.
Right, there's loads. There's loads
Ken
more.
X-Corp, I think, too.
Yes, that is true. I all that I know is that they've told me that the in the furry fandom, the music scene is practically non-existent. The music scene, like, you don't go to a furry concert, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More art. It's more visual art.
Right. It is very much an art thing.
They normally get like just cover bands.
Maybe.
One thing that I am kind of curious about, and I was kind of hoping to talk about coming into this podcast, was not so much but like the differences between fandoms, but I guess the kind of elitism or gatekeeping or people otherwise turning their nose up at like the gap between music that is based on, the Friendship is Magic fandom, and I guess I don't for lack of a better term, quote unquote, normal music. And I hate to say that because
That's
that is
fine.
not at all the.
Yeah, but we were
send
talking about that kind of on the last Brony debate. We were talking about how well Brony and other things mix together. Now everything gets ponified, right? You can be a Brony and be a fan of everything else, but Brony is not typically, in my experience, welcome in other fandoms. Like, so we were talking about our experiences with that kind of last week. But I don't know how well that really pertains to gatekeeping in an art form. But I will say this: when analysis for Brony was really starting to take off in like late 2012, early 2013, and the first the first groups were getting together. It was, I forget what they called it. I don't know if it was called the Rift at the time, but I was actually a proponent of having more qualifications to get into these kind of content creator groups, because what we were doing is we were letting everybody in with who was just starting up with a live stream and a General Zoe avatar, and or just some really low effort, low quality production value. And I said, if we let all these people into the group, then it's going to get saturated. We're going to dumb ourselves down. We're going to, we're going to ultimately be seen as like the black sheep of the fandom. And I'd rather not take the place of the fan fiction writers. So I was a proponent of...
And no one listened to you, and here we are.
And, well, to a degree, a lot of my predictions came true, but that's just kind of my experience as to why I think it's good to have some level of standards, to not just for the community image, because I don't care about that nearly as much as I care about the growth of the individual. And that if there are standards, then the individual has something to strive to look up to and say, okay, I need to work hard and accomplish X, Y, and Z so that I can come into my own as an artist. And if this endeavor is worth the effort, if whatever my goal is worth the effort, I will put that effort forward. And that's how you get good content. That's how you get good art that really reflects on the artist itself, rather than everybody, we ended up with 30 Alicorn OCs talking about their subjective thoughts on the latest episode in live stream format with one, picture that never changed through the whole thing. And it was just, and I don't know if music has the same problem in Brony, but that is kind of my feelings on art in general. So does anybody want to refute or add to anything that I just said?
Yes,
I do.
I think
yes. Bring me your hate. I will let it flow through me.
Not hate, but a clarification. Can I clarify something real quick?
Sure.
Because elitism is not quality control or standards. It's often disguised as quality control in standards.
Agreed.
But elitism is really more of a philosophical thing. Like the examples I'm going to bring up are like nobody is saying that anyone is untalented in the version of elitism that I'm bringing in. It more has to do with your art is a lesser art, or the way you do art is less legitimate than the way we do art. And it's not speaking to personal talent or ability, but that's often thrown as an excuse for why people's arguments are correct. So yeah, other people could go ahead and go, but
okay, because I actually I'm going to do a video about this. I actually do not music critic, despite me technically being one. Because I don't understand their logic at all.
Cruizer, let me stop you for just a second. Go ahead and repeat what you just said, because you glitched out a little bit on us, and I missed a few of those words. So try again.
I actually plan on doing a video about this. I actually do not trust music critics, despite me technically being one. I understand their logic, and is it the internet or the mic issue? How am I having mic issue?
It's the internet. It's the internet. Don't worry about it. Continue.
Okay. For example, there is... I'm going to try to stay away from name drop here, because I really don't want to give these guys free publicity, but I saw one music critic compared the song Bad Religion by Godsmack. He said he absolutely hates this song because it's basically the open D chord at a certain rhythm for most of the song until like the chorus hits. And now he claims that he's not an elitist and says it's not what you play, it's how you play it, because there's lots of songs that are very simplistic but sound good. But where I think he steps into being an elitist was the example he brought. which was the Metroid theme from the original 8-bit Nintendo, and how that uses just one note to create the atmosphere. Well, my issue with that is you're comparing two different styles of music here. One is meant to make you rock out. The other is meant to create this ominous, haunting vibe. So this is a fair comparison. And yet you're claiming, and I can't anything more elitist than that.
Okay, so let me, Goonie, let me ask you this question, because I'm interested in everybody's take on it, but I want to hear yours real quick. Is more complex music better than simple music?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
So what makes good music? Define good music.
Good music is pretty subjective because it can vary really. It depends on what some people. I don't know. I'm not like trying to jump on every single bandwagon and every single music bandwagon ever, but like really good music can be defined by good music can be defined by. It can't really be defined by how well it's written or how like. Because I don't know, there are some songs that
we lost
that really
them.
take off. That I don't know. I wouldn't say that every song that takes off is really good. I wouldn't say that at all. I was just saying I just know that that's what people enjoy. You know, just because it's a good song or people like it does not mean that it's a good song. You know, good music in general is, in my opinion, is something that does take effort, but it doesn't necessarily require. You know, it doesn't require like a certain ability. You know,
Okay.
Good music.
I got you.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, we got you. Cruiser, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, interrupting there. But basically, because what I basically discovered is that music is so subjective that it's actually too subjective. You can argue until you're blue in the face why a sounds bland, boring, or generic. However, you can easily argue the opposing side, and they're no more right or wrong than you are. So,
I think,
what's the point?
Yeah, I think for music to be.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I think to define what's really good music, I think for music to be really good, you have to be able to be accessible to the lay ear, to someone who doesn't really have good knowledge of music at all, or the lay person can get into it. But also you have something for the trained ear, for experts. So if your music can connect with people who know nothing about music, but also people who know a ton about music and say, hey, I see a lot of effort and quality in that, that's what I would call really good music. Because there's a lot of trash that's popular, and there's a lot of great music that has never been noticed. And I think where the ball is dropped a lot, or where elitism gets in the way, is elitism often gatekeeps good music from getting exposure to where it would be connecting with people. But because a lot of people are at the front, like critics or whoever, or art teachers are saying, no, this isn't good. And that trickles down to people never trying out or experiencing really good music. And that's my problem with elitism, is because that definition of good music, to where, hey, a layperson would like this knowing nothing, and people who are trained would also love this, but they're never going to hear it because the people who filter perceptions are telling you it's bad off of the start. And that's the problem with it. That's the core of what I wanted to get at tonight.
The biggest thing I have actually seen, now that I think about it, with elitism in music is actually more of a counterculture type thing. Like, in response to, instead of stopping music or trying to, gatekeep music from being good, it's a reaction to music that is good but feels to some people undeserving.
Yes.
And like, I will mention the 4 chords of pop is a big one that people do not like. And I don't know why. There's this idea that just because music uses the same conventions that it is always used for,
people who complain,
the lifespan of the Western world, and like Cordero, you're classically trained. You probably know just as well as I do that every song uses the same 4 chords, just spicier.
It does, and every song is not boring or the same either. Because anybody who complains, it's fun to meme on the Four Chords of Pop. There's a lot of great comedy skits on the Four Chords of Pop, and they're fantastic. But anybody who legitimately complains about the Four Chords of Pop never stop to ask themselves why that formula works so well and is so popular. And the simple answer is that there was a big shift in the 20th century from complex composed music to very simple art. It's a very simple art music or leader or sung songs. So modern music that hits pop charts today and has been for like 60 years has those four chords of pop because the expression is not in the complex composition. The expression is now in the lyrics, the style, the individual singer, the personality, and the feel that they put into the song. So that's where you're getting the artistry and the individuality. It's not in the composition anymore, which is why a composition is now formulaic and carries over. They just changed where the art is coming from. So when people look at music and say, and this is elitism, the four chords of pop means that all modern music is bullshit. It's like, no, you're focused on one form of artistry based on hundreds of years ago, and you're failing to recognize a new path of artistry that's not new. It's coming close to a century of people doing this, and you still haven't figured out why it's connecting with large swaths of audiences. That's elitism right there.
Okay, so Goonie, what do you think about the four chords of pop, and how do we bring about the next revolution of music?
There's nothing wrong with the four chords of pop. It's just that it doesn't always work like people think it does. It does work really well, but to make yours unique, you have to add something to it at least, just something to make those. Even if it's just in the lyrics, you know. A lot of people nowadays tend to, even if you use the four chords of pop, they add one little note here or there to it that just like makes it sound like it's completely original. And so that's what gives the song a unique taste and why people think it doesn't sound like this song or that song.
So real quick for me, explain what the four chords of pop are to an idiot. To a certain brown pony with glasses that knows absolutely nothing about music theory.
Okay, can you remember four numbers?
I'll take a stab at this one. It's basically humans recognize patterns, and the four chords of pop are generally a roadmap from the beginning to the end of a phrase of music that sounds more or less self-contained and has its own closure, but also lends itself to repetition. So I'm actually going to plug one of Goonies' songs here. House of Glass is just a 1-4-6-5 progression.
It is.
But yeah, like you'll totally notice that, it starts at the 1 and that's kind of your home base. And then from there, you kind of move through these other chords that kind of lend themselves to transitioning from one to another until you end back at the 5, which wants to go back to the 1. And so the four chords of pop are basically just kind of moving in this circle from beginning to end, back to beginning. And that is how a lot of, it's basically how Western music, I'll say. Most Western music goes. The only question is how much other complexity do you add to that basic? And you can even really ignore the four chords and just say, the tonic, the dominant, and the subdominant. But that's for another day. Okay. But yeah, the four chords are basically what works and what people's ears like to hear to get from note to note, from phrase to phrase.
I have a piano in front of me. Generically, the four chords they sound kind of like this.
Yep.
And they repeat. That's basically it.
Okay, so this is starting to sound, and I'm sure that it's no coincidence that it sort of sounds like the basics of poetry, where you get the BCAB sort of meters. I think they called it. I'm trying to remember, and I'm not remembering high school very well. Penbiamic meter. I'm sorry.
Iambic pentameter. That's syllabic.
Yes. Okay.
That's syllabic, rhythmic.
Yeah. Well, okay, Brony, can you remember four numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when people say 16451 or 14651, those two can be interchangeable. It's just think of it as 1 is sort of a beginning chord, and then
Okay.
4 and 6 are sort of middle chords, and then 5 is an ending chord. That's like, oh, we've reached the end, and then you start over. You go back to a beginning chord like 1. So the 4 chords of pop is basically the 4 chords of beginning, middle, end, and then repeat. And those 4 chords that are generally used are really, really good at that function of establishing a beginning, middle, end of phrase, beginning phrase, or end of song. So yeah, so that's the 4 chords of pop, and you can really macro analyze all music to that. In fact, almost all tonal music can be identified as 151, but that's like some theory 4, like advanced grad degree stuff. They simplify it to like all Western music is just 151. You're just starting at the tonic, the beginning, and then through whatever means moving to the dominant, which is the end, and then returning to the tonic. But classical music, or like my background, is just a whole bunch of complicated ways of doing that. And the 4 chords of pop are just a very nice, easy on the ear, simple way of doing that. That's very functional. You can translate it onto any genre or style of music, and you can make any kind of variation on it.
Okay, so
it's really easy to make a variation on it. That's why it's functioned for 80 years.
Let me ask you. Let me ask the panel this question then: which took more talent and knowledge to produce? Lose Yourself from the 8 Mile soundtrack, or any piece by Mozart? Shoot, we'll even just take the one where he wrote about the time he had really bad diarrhea, right? But I'm talking about organizing, an 80-person choir and a 120-piece orchestra from the ground up. Which of those took more?
The Mozart piece is obviously going to be more involved because there's more moving parts. But if you want to talk about which one is smarter, or which one's more intelligent, or took more talent, the answer is it's apples. It really is apples and oranges. Because what Eminem did, first of all, Lose Yourself is a really, really good song lyrically. Because Eminem takes you. I can have a whole debate on Eminem. Eminem takes you on a lyrical journey in his songs that basically unloads the darkest deep dredges of the human existence, comes out through Eminem's sarcastic and angry tone. And even being in that narrow range of sarcasm and anger, he somehow has this amazing swing of emotions that he takes you through and tells a whole story in the process. Eminem could do things creatively that Mozart could never dream of. But obviously Mozart had mechanical musical talent that Eminem doesn't have the training to compare to. So the answer is they're equally creatively valid.
I challenge you to find any Mozart work that says the phrase "mom spaghetti" in it, and you can't.
Mozart would have. He wasn't above that, but it's true. He did not bring up mom spaghetti.
Yeah, I just got
maybe mom's farts.
Yeah.
Studying Mozart, he was weird.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought him up and compared him to freaking Marshall Mathers. Goonie, what do you think about that question?
Well, I'm going to bring up two other examples as well.
Yeah.
So, like, one of them is a Brony song, and one of them is just it's very, very mainstream. So, and one is simple, one is extremely complicated. So it doesn't necessarily, they don't necessarily use the 4 chord. I guess it does kind of, but in more of a minor way, literally minor in music. So Bad Guy by what's her name, Billie Eilish. And this one, it's such a simple song. Right, it has hardly anything in the background for music. It's got a few synthesizers, and then we have "Lullaby for a Princess." Right, if more people knew about that, it'd be so popular. But the song, but the fact of the matter is that one is just insanely complicated. Piano has to be flawlessly played, and like there's strings in the background, and even in the remastered version, there's more. And the vocalist has to be extremely talented. There's lots of words. It's like 6 minutes long, whatever, But then there's Bad Guy, which Bad Guy, it may be simpler, but the fact still remains that the melody, sometimes a melody like this can take, no matter how much you try to get it out, it can take ages to think of. Just the thinking process to get that kind of thing that will stick in somebody's head forever and ever is just it takes not as much musical skill, but it takes still just as much effort and patience to like maybe the process. I imagine that the process for a Lullaby for a Princess took way longer, like in recording, than Bad Guy did. But I also imagine that thinking of Bad Guy and the entire song itself probably took, or rather, the writing process of that song probably took ages. Probably took a lot longer than Lullaby for a Princess did. Just
I would have trouble. I would have trouble believing that personally. Sorry to interrupt. What were you going to say?
You're good.
Okay.
Oh, it's just yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. As I actually do hear this a lot too, and even using the example that I brought up with that song by Mac, the critics like their one response is, "Oh, how long do you think it really took them to make that?" And that's the kind of like their argument to kind of demonstrate how something is lazy. But that to me that argument doesn't make any sense either. I mean, it took Tool 13 years to release Fear Inoculum, and to me that just sounds like a Tool album. It took like what, maybe 6-8 years to release their what they call the Untitled album, and a lot of fans did not like it.
How long did Metallica work on Saint Anger?
Is it?
It wasn't long enough.
Yes. So the fact that something may have taken years to make or took just weeks to make means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you're right about that. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a good song or that people are even gonna like it or even will hear it. You know, I get what you mean. Maybe Bad Guy didn't take so long, but I do know that like it's just there's a lot that goes into each song still. There's a lot that goes into each song, even if one sounds simpler than the other.
I do want to touch on, and I apologize if this kind of digresses a bit from what we were talking about, but I do have one question for Goonie that I kind of feel like will open up more discussion about kind of the elitism, both of music and music creation, both in and out of the fandom. So, Goonie, can you tell me about like the philosophy behind making Unrequited?
Unrequited? Well, it's actually a lot simpler than you might think. My album called Unrequited is just a compilation album with a couple lyrical fixes here and there of my past songs, and I tried to. There was only one new original song that was on no other albums, and that was called "Not Much to Miss." The rest of them were all released, and the purpose of the album was also to get it on an album that doesn't have the name 4Everfreebrony on there, so that I could give it to other people, family, without making them feel weird about it, that kind of thing. I know that some people do feel weird listening to music that's inspired by ponies. Unrequited did not have a very complicated history. Just literally tried to include the theme of love or breakups or whatever, and then I looked for all my songs that were kind of like that. I remastered them and changed a couple lyrics here and there in a couple of the songs, and then I published it. That's it.
Okay, so it was more like just something I can show my family and friends, not so much well, here's some greatest hits. Let's see if I can get a departure from the walls of the fandom.
No, it wasn't like a greatest hits thing. No. No, not even by far.
Have you seen that though, where you have like a Brony musician who I don't know if there is really a good way to word this, but who kind of senses that kind of elitism, that like somehow the music that they're making, inspired by the fandom as part of the fandom, is less valid than something you would hear, on the radio in the car, and that has actually inspired them to distance themselves?
You mean like if a Brony musician feels inferior to mainstream music?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that we don't tend to focus on it, but it's something that we all kind of as learning musicians, it's something that we kind of know in the back of our minds, but we still don't let it take away from the fun of making the music, because most Brony musicians do it for the fun of it and for maybe a tiny bit of income. I do it as a full-time job, but most, I would say, it's just like I don't know a musician. I know like there have been a few people who have released sort of a greatest hits album, and then after that they were like, I'm done. That's it. Like Woodlore. But other than that, I can't really think of anybody who's distanced themselves because okay. I do know one person.
Alex S. Living Tombstone.
Aviator.
But I wasn't gonna. Not for the fact. I know people who have distanced themselves, but not for feeling inferior. More like feeling they distance themselves for just to spread to gain more audience, to get a different audience. Aviator more to cinematic and video game kind of inspired music, and Living Tombstone is practically all video game music, and also Gato Paint, not so often, but he does upload every now and then. But they all the bigger names, they gain more audience, and I think it was good for them. But I've seen a couple people drop off when you try to leave the fandom or try to leave the music scene in the fandom because you feel inferior. You don't tend to create more after that. I've seen a couple people do that, actually.
Interesting. So, if anything, that you inadvertently brought up a point that could play very well into the discussion for tonight is the elitism for Brony music seems to work in the opposite direction, where Bronies are very accepting of just anything we produce with a pony face on it, even if it is a purely orchestral piece. That if it didn't have a pony face on it, you would have never known. And that's most of what I listen to. But when you try to branch out, people otherwise say, "Oh, you're a Brony. I don't want anything to do with you." Now, I know that a couple of musicians, as well as some animators, even like duo cartoonists, had to stop making their big project that they were working on because they couldn't get work because they were Bronies. I've actually myself lost jobs because for being a Brony as well. It's just for some reason the outside world doesn't want anything to do with us. So
in some cases, yeah.
Yeah, so what's the deal with that?
It's so horrible, but it's just like here's what I've seen. I've seen two different things. One, if you're a Brony, you don't get accepted so often, except for maybe in the furry fandom, because a lot of people say that like Bronies are just diet furries or discount furries or whatever, but the first thing that I see is that you don't get accepted if you're a Brony outside of anywhere in the any other fandom or like that or music scene or whatever. And the other thing that I see is that if you try to branch out and you show your Brony audience that you're doing this, they're just like, "Don't leave us,"
Yeah.
It's just the first song that I did that was like, and it was the only one that I ever released about FNAF because I felt inspired to write one just because I'd seen the games and whatever. I had like probably most of the comments on the video were just about like, "Oh great, another one."
Lost another one.
Oh my goodness! It's
well, yeah, because the Brony fandom has had bad experiences with artists in general just leaving and saying, I'm leaving the fandom because it's dying or something like that, or I just for one reason or another, and they make a big stink out of leaving. and then and that just turns off a lot of the audience, like, oh, you're too good for us now, kind of attitude. But if
Yeah.
like Artem Yegorov is another one, and he's done some really good instrumental pieces, and at some point in time the thumbnails for his music stopped having ponies on them, and if I hadn't have been thinking about it, I would have never noticed. Right, because he never said anything about it. He never made a whole video of I need to stop making Brony music, or I'm ashamed of my past, or anything like that. His inspiration just moved elsewhere, and from what I understand, his audience followed him because he didn't make a big pretentious fool of himself on his way
he did
out.
a smooth transition. Yeah.
Right. So if you're
Pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Also, I take issue with us being discount furries. We are premium furries. Thank you very much. $59.99 on OnlyFurs.
I actually would like to add to this in the mainstream rock world. Matter of fact, this happened just recently. The band I Remember released their album called Thank You, which was delayed for 2 years. And for the first maybe 4 or 5 albums, they had this very pop punk plus metalcore sound. And then here comes this album, and it sounds more like mainstream video rock, like something you like. Maybe if you take the Sound of Dragons, like maybe a filter of their sound over it. Now, there is still some cool sounding songs in this album, but however, a lot of fans did not like it. Personally, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's mixed. Definitely
Mixed reviews.
Yeah, and some people are not necessarily accusing them of selling out, but just wondering, man, what the heck just happened here? This was the same band who said, respect your surroundings. Now you have a song that sounds like you're singing to your kid. And now, me personally, I kind of saw this was, in my opinion, they earned this album the right to experiment, because they gave us a consistent sound 4 or 5 albums, so that's plenty of content for us to have our fill. The second was they warned us that this was not going to sound like their previous material, and the other thing is that it still sounds like A Day to Remember. It still sounds like them. And a band who failed at doing this was Linkin Park when they made One More Light.
That was such a good album, though. I was actually just going to mention Linkin Park.
Oh, no,
One More Light is not a good album. Now
here's the debate.
Well, here's my beef with Linkin Park, because those were my standards for at least you want to try something different. Linkin Park, they only gave us 2 albums of their original sound.
2.5.
Well, roughly.
Yeah, you can say like Bits and Pieces of Minutes to Midnight, Bits and Pieces of Hunting Party.
I count Reanimation. I unironically like Reanimation.
I don't count remix albums, but there's 2 albums of original content of their original sound, and then after by their third one, they kept changing their sound with every single style. So they did not have a consistent sound for the longest time. And while they did warn us that 1,000 Suns was going to be different, they did not tell us that One More Light was going to be a straight up pop album that sounds like the Chainsmokers would have done. And the third was that sound, like I said, they sound nothing like Linkin Park. Like, you should just change their name to Washington Street. And in my opinion, the back they got was, they well deserved, but they should have seen coming. Because in my opinion, One More Light was fan base going, guys, enough is enough. We want old sound. You keep yanking us around. We're sick of this.
So I've got a couple more questions here, but go ahead, Cordero.
I mean, Cruizer has a really good point. Linkin Park's mistake is Chester should have never blown his voice out and had to get surgery. That was a mistake. And Fort Minor should have never left. Obviously they could have just kept being great forever, if they hadn't injured themselves and basically broken up. Sorry, I'm just giving you credit. Like that's kind of why Linkin Park was kind of like pushed into a corner for like the reason they kept trying new things is they couldn't keep making their same sound. Chester didn't have the same voice anymore. He literally destroyed it, and Fort Minor literally left. Fort Minor literally left. He was like half of the creative juice of that. Like the whole rap. He was the rap part, rock, the Fort Minor part. So they kind of had to reinvent themselves, and they just were never able to make anything as good as what they started with.
The way I always kind of looked at it,
Of course they tried. It's hard. It's hard to make something that connects.
Hold up, guys. What were you saying, Caps?
The way I kind of always looked at it, and I think this is kind of the way I've seen it in interviews, if memory serves, is that basically, I mean, you look at, Hybrid Theory came out in like what, 2000, 2001?
1999.
Was it 99?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, you have right around, the turn of the century, and they're kind of in their 20s, they're in their prime, and as they grew older and as they continued to make more music, I don't think that what happened with their sound was necessarily anything more than a product of them just maturing. They're not the same angry 20-somethings they are in, 2018, 17 when One More Light came out. And like you can actually I like to think of it as them kind of maturing with their music.
Well, there's no excuse for that. I'm the same angry 50-something as I was when I
you were 39.
And I keep hearing that whole thing, like they're not angsty teenagers anymore. Well, first of all, Chester, number one, he had depression. Okay, I can tell you as someone who also angst is something that never goes away. It just evolved with you.
Well, the actual track "One More Light,"
which I find a little ironic. That's a song caring about someone in their own lives, and then Chester takes his life.
Yeah,
so clearly he was still angsty.
I mean, I feel like there was. I mean, there's
not only
clearly...
that, but also, sorry, let me finish this one. I keep hearing that they're not in their 20s anymore. You know what? Neither is the band Korn. You know what? They'll still pump that sound because that's what their fans like. And Korn also to what their sound as well. See You on the Other Side, the Path to Totality.
That's a lot of cutting out.
All right, Caps, what were you saying?
At the end of the day, I mean, they had so much pressure from their fan base to, put out another Hybrid Theory, put out another Meteora. And, even if you do listen to those two albums, you can actually kind of hear some of the subtle difference. Like, Meteora, it still kind of had that metal crunch, but I feel like it was a lot more electronic focused than Hybrid Theory was. Anyway,
if you listen to Reanimation, you can hear that transition to electronica.
Yeah. I've always been of the belief that there's a difference between a fan and a supporter. You have the Linkin Park fans who, they just want more Hybrid Theory, more Meteora, more Hybrid Theory, more Meteora. And then you have the supporter who, I mean, there was clearly such a pressure from their fan base to keep, putting out the same stuff, but they didn't. And I don't think it wasn't a smart move necessarily career-wise, but as artists and as content creators, I think it is more important to put out more of what inspires you and not so much what the expectation is and what idea people have of your music or art in general is.
Well,
so,
like I said, my beef is that if they gave a consistent sound, just like maybe 3 or 4 albums, I'm fine with that. Metallica did with 4, did with 6.
So let me interject here. I haven't heard from Goonie in a while. Do you have any thoughts on this before I get into my last 2 questions of the night?
On the Linkin Park tangents.
Yeah.
The great Linkin Park debate of the night.
I'm going to need to rename this freaking stream. Go ahead, sir.
I was never a big fan of Linkin Park. I liked a couple of their songs, but I do understand I do understand kind of how that goes a little bit. Not from a personal experience. Every single one of my albums has been different. Every single one of them, but more like I understand it from the perspective of like listening to other bands. You know, like Rush has always kept a pretty consistent sound. You know, and then also Muse for a while. But I have a feeling I may be talking out my butt here, but I have a feeling that same thing kind of happened to Muse when they came out with their new sound with the song Madness. You know, like it was very, very different from like anything that they had ever done. And from what I know, from the songs that I'd heard from different sort of albums, like on Natural, what is it called, Natural Selection, and Plug In Baby, and whatever, all those kinds of songs, they generally kept it similar. Their songs are not your typical rock songs. They always have some sort of weird bridge in the middle or some sort of ending. They hardly ever follow the whole verse chorus kind of pattern for a song. Sometimes they do, but I feel like Madness, I feel like they conformed to the pop formula with the song because it had some cool synthesizer stuff, but you could tell with this one they were playing more with a synthesizer than they did with their normal hand played instruments and stuff like that. And I thought that there's nothing wrong with messing around with synthesizers, of course, but I just thought that it was because they had sort of established that sound. I don't think that that album was so whatever album Madness was on. I don't even know the name of the album. I just know the song. I don't think that one became quite as popular as the previous ones.
I think
because of the fact that it was something that people didn't expect and didn't want from them.
I
song was cool.
I think that you're just salty on Linkin Park because you had to carry a music book by them one time and it gave you a paper cut, and in the end it caused you to faint, and when you woke up you had a tick crawling in your skin, and you've just been numb to it ever since.
I was waiting.
No. I just didn't
stealing my joke from chat. I see.
Yeah, that's right. You did post that in chat. Ah! No, you stole it from my brain. Okay, I've been sitting here waiting for like 15 minutes to make that joke. Let me get on to the. I've got a couple of questions here. And if anything, this whole Linkin Park debate can fuel into one of them here. So how much of elitism in music comes from the musicians and the content creators themselves, and how much of it comes from the fans? Because that's we were talking a lot about the fans during the Linkin Park section here. Goonie, what do you think about that question?
Oh my gosh, it is mostly the fans.
Mostly explain.
Yeah.
My goodness. So the reason why is because if you like something, if you become accustomed to it, then you want more of it, right? Therefore, if you don't get anything, you're gonna be a little bit judgmental about it. That's my perspective, at least. I don't know.
I've never made music professionally, but I've always had the feeling and the vibe that people who are successful making music and who do that out of the love of music are generally really encouraging of having people do the same regardless of what their background, what their genres of choice are. I feel like music on the creation side is surprisingly unified across genres.
Yes.
I do feel like most of the elitism does come from music. I've seen another incident that happened. There's a Rob Howard from Judas Priest and heck, even Ozzy Osbourne. They both what's called auto cues on stage. It's like reading off a teleprompter for when they start singing. Now, this doesn't bother me because considering how much these guys have done for heavy metal and the culture, they've earned some help. However, like Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, he gives these guys a lot of shade because he feels like you shouldn't need that. Or if you start needing that, then you should retire.
What band is using that assistance?
Rob Halford and Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know that.
You mean Ozzy fried his brain, Osborne?
Yeah, Ozzy took a bunch of drugs and things that aren't drugs but acted like drugs anyway. Osborne.
He can't mechanically, physically perform anymore on stage, so he needs tools to assist him to make the music.
Well, to be fair, Rob Halford was a drug addict or an alcoholic.
And they all are. 10 out of 10 music creators are drug addicts.
Yeah, but is that guy getting his DNA studied to try to figure out how he survived such a heroic amount of drugs?
That would be Keith Richards. That's Keith Richards' blood.
I'm trying to make a point here.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All these jokes aside, the other thing too is that here's Bruce throwing shade at these guys for using a teleprompter, which he doesn't. Someone like hit the genetic jackpot as well as took very good care of himself. These guys didn't. I don't think that's a reason to shun them or tell them to retire.
Yeah.
So they use a teleprompter. Big deal. If they can still, perform the task at hand, then who cares? A lot of people have said, well, I want to see a karaoke act. You're not. You're seeing a live band perform. But that doesn't matter to them. They think more with their ego and pride rather than practicality.
I've seen being part of the fandom has actually helped me gain a different perspective of all different kinds of music for the sake of performing. Like if you can do, I hope I'm somewhat going on topic here, but I've worked with a lot of electronic musicians, and that is not my forte, so I know hardly anything about it. Like, I know nothing about how to make EDM or anything like that. But performing and watching them and going to conventions has kind of opened my mind and seen and realized that if the audience enjoys it, then that's what really counts. Because if you're a performer and you're on stage, no matter what you do, as long as you keep your audience captivated and you own your act, that's what really counts. Like, I saw the what's his name, Loop Hoof. I don't know if you've ever heard of Loop Hoof. Loop Hoof is perhaps lesser known on the YouTube side, but he is incredible at conventions. He is probably one of the best EDM performers you'll ever see in your life. He actually has this cool thing where he tips his little keypad thing forward so that the audience can see it, and he reaches over, puts his fingers like where everybody can see. So, and he does the sounds himself. Of course, there's the track playing with it, of course, but he does a lot of the sounds on there himself, and he keeps the audience entertained. So just like the amount of effort that you put into something, as long as it doesn't matter, as long as you own your act and you keep your audience captivated,
Mm-hmm. So, my next question for tonight, my last one that I wanted to ask, is at what point does elitism become a problem, in a sense that that we lose people that would have otherwise gone on to do something? Okay, let me put it this way. How often do talented musicians that haven't realized their full potential yet and really come to develop, how often do they get discouraged from creating more because of pretentiousness in the arts? We'll just say that in general. Does anybody have any experience with that?
Every year that music school exists, every year at professional music school.
Caps, do you mind if I air out some of your dirty laundry here? Because you told me one time that when you were in music school, they made it feel like what was that one episode? They made it feel like cart before the horses, right? Or cart before the ponies. Was that episode where the pressure was just too much? Can you refresh my memory here, Caps?
Cart Before the Ponies was the one with the. I'm pretty sure that was the one with the Derby racers. Where,
Yes.
Yeah. Where it's just the.
No. It was the Buckball episode where they went to Appaloosa.
Oh, okay.
That's what. Yeah, Caps told me that music school made music feel like how Pinky and Fluttershy felt during the Buckball episode.
That's accurate. That's what music school does. It sucks all of the fun out of music.
Yeah, it turns music into a series of objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard countless things of how learning more about the technical side of music will ruin things for you.
So, and Goonie, have you ever had any experience with that? So, at what point does it become a problem, and is that a fault of the people causing the problem, the elitist, the pretentious people themselves, or is it the fault of the person, the would-be artist for not biting through it and persevering?
It can be both, because there's different people with different amounts of endurance through negative comments. For example, like the one comment that you'll see if you do a cover of a song, your least favorite thing, a musician's least favorite thing to see is I prefer the original. It's just like you can be, of course there's being honest about it, of course, but then it's not it's not your favorite thing to hear, because it means to that person that you didn't make it feel like the original, or you didn't make them feel anything new for this one. It's just like there's that aspect of it. And so, but then there's also how well you take it really depends on you. It takes a lot, and I mean a lot, to actually discourage me from creating more music or more covers or whatever. But like I know that there are a lot of people who have low self-esteem and depression and whatever, and still, because of that negative comments, this is why you always see I see Altrain retweeting this all the time, or people, or random people, don't read the comments. and that's why, because it's just depending on what your content is, you can get a lot of discouragement from just the fans, and that's when it becomes a problem. The elitism is like, when you decide that one song is better than one version of a song is better than another, and you voice that, and you want that person to know that as like constructive criticism, or even if it's deconstructive criticism, or whatever.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody like me who believes that if you're going to bother making a cover, you should either improve it or change it, like take a different spin on it? For example, well, I would say your covers of the Elements of Harmony songs, Loyalty, Kindness, things like that, those are improvements, whereas on the original, whereas The Sound of Silence between Simon and Garfunkel and Disturbed is a changing of the style. It's a reinterpretation. If you're gonna do a cover, I think it's got to be one of those two things, either adding it or changing it. At one point in time, I tried to do a cover of a J-Rock song, and I just translated it into English. I either suck at singing or I suck at mixing. I'm not sure which one it is, but it didn't really come out that well. But that's what I was trying to do. So what would you say to someone like me?
I don't know. If you're trying to, if your main thing is just vocals, right? And I imagine you had a backing track.
Yes, I commissioned an instrumental cover from XM Leader 2006. I don't know if he still makes music.
So, and did you put any embellishments in it, like whatsoever?
Not to my knowledge, off the top. I did. Now, going directly from Japanese to English doesn't always work, so I had to make some minor lyrical adjustments. I don't know if that counts.
And was there already an English version of this song?
No.
okay, that probably means that you didn't have good publicity, or you didn't have good mixing. Because I trust you're a good singer. You sound like you sell your whatever. You sound like you have a good voice, and you told me that you have plenty of singing experience. But so it's probably just a mix.
I'm self-taught. My parents are actually professional opera singers, and I just kind of hold myself to their standard. And I would take these. Here's what would happen. I would take these really long road trips, moving from state to state constantly, and just keeping myself busy with singing. And if I didn't hit a note, I would know it right away, and I'd go back and I'd try it again until I got it right. So I got, I'd say hundreds or a couple thousand hours of practice in like that. So self-taught with, self-taught with some understanding of what it should sound like. But theory, no. And I did a little bit of musical theater. Outside of that, I don't know. If you're interested, I'll show you after the stream.
That's cool. Yeah, I know there were lots of famous singers back in the day who knew nothing about music theory. They just knew what sounded good. If it sounded
absolutely
that's how they liked it.
Right. So what would you say to someone like me that says you need to either improve or change a song in order to make it a good cover?
Just have somebody mix it. If you don't, I mean, honestly, it's good to add embellishments. But like if you're doing a translation cover for like the purpose of having it in the language, that is enough embellishment because it's going to be something that people can now understand. It's a new thing. It makes it unique. Your cover has to be unique in some way for it to get noticed. It can. Sometimes you can get lucky by just making a more modernized with better mixing, that kind of thing, a remastered cover. Sometimes those get more popular. Like I want to say Prince whatever covers his own songs, but like even from the previous version, even though the previous version was like epically popular, the new one tends to like Frailty. The new one is actually becoming much more popular than the old one was, just because it's better quality and it brought something new. It's actually in a slightly different key too. If you do a cover, it's got to have something unique to it. Your uniqueness was bringing it into English, and that's enough. So the reason it doesn't get noticed, I'd say, is probably it had bad mixing.
Okay, I was just using myself as an example. But it sounds like ultimately you're agreeing with me that if you're going to do a cover, that's the standard of a cover, is do something different with it.
Yeah, you need to bring your own spin to it. You need to add your own artistic flavor to it, because if you're just trying to recreate what was already there, that's basically karaoke. Like at that point, yeah, if you're covering something, unless you're trying to be a cover band or like, let me recreate this for fun or for karaoke. If you're putting out your own thing, like, yeah, you need to put your own artistic spin on it. As far as improving, I kind of take issue with the improve part, because if you're trying to improve on the song, you're basically picking a fight with everybody who liked the original. But I like the other part where you're aiming to put your own artistic spin on it, like Sound of Silence. By when Disturbed did the cover, that didn't improve on Simon and Garfunkel, but that was a really cool, different, unique direction to take it, to the point where I like the Disturbed one just as much as I like the Simon and Garfunkel one, and I grew up on that.
I actually prefer the Disturbed version, and I grew up on it too.
A lot of people do. It's really good.
Yeah,
I do too.
For me, to bring another example, was the cover of Gone Away, originally by The Offspring. The cover was
the Five Finger Death Punch one.
Yeah, because I personally like the Five Finger one, because The Offspring was meant to be as emotionally shattering as possible, like someone who was crying their eyes out. Meanwhile, the Five Finger Death Punch was meant to cover the more dramatic aspect of losing a loved one. That's why like a power ballad. The Offspring's emotionally shattered rock version.
I have another example. You guys know, I don't know if you ever heard my song, what is it called? A Final Twilight. It's a cover, but I changed nothing about it. The only thing that I did was I brought a female vocalist to it, and then I also I recorded it. The old one had issues. Loads of people loved it, and it was great. And it was Matthew Mosher's second most popular song, like on his entire channel.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact still remains that it wasn't a good. The quality of the recording was bad. So I think when we say like improving on the song, I think it's more like it's not like trying to pick a fight or trying to say that your version is better. It's probably more like giving the song the quality that it lacked. Like I have another one, you know.
That's kind of like a rude way of saying the same thing.
I am bringing out your full potential.
The quality that it lacks.
I'm completing your training.
These are hard truths, you know. It's not like we can tiptoe around and, you know, pretend that, you know, something that I can record right here in my room with a $20 keyboard and this blue snowball microphone will have the same quality as something that somebody in a studio had, but that's just not the case.
Sometimes it's true.
I'm not gonna lie. A lot of the covers that I did were for that sole purpose. Like not Good Girl, of course. Good Girl was probably one of the most well professionally recorded songs that I'd ever heard in my life in the Brony fandom, that is. But the other ones that I did, like, you know, Kindness and Loyalty, I didn't bring hardly anything new to the song except for the fact that it was a fresh recording that sounded close to studio quality. You know, it sounded professional. It sounded that's what I wanted to do. It's same with The Way She Flies. And now my version of The Way She Flies is even more popular than the old one. And I wish people knew about the old one more, you know? It's just like that's the whole improving aspect that I think is okay. If you're trying to like make it seem like it's your idea or like it's your version is like the official one, then that's different, you know. But
that kind of improvement kind of goes with covering other amateurs, like where there really is something to improve. Like if you take somebody's actual professional studio recording and is like, I'm improving it, wouldn't you consider that to be insulting? Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I improved on this recording because, you know, a fellow amateur did it and I happen to have more expensive equipment than them and more experience than them. Sure, but like going from professional to another professional and it's like, hey, I improved your song. You get what I'm saying? Like it depends. It's kind of a different street.
It depends on how humble you are. You know, if you know what part, it's like, I would be flattered.
Too. Have you seen rappers?
I would be. Yeah, I know. I hate that. So no, I would be flattered though if somebody, if some, what's his name? You know, Erick Whitaker. There we go. Erick Whitaker decided to.
Wow, I'm not the one who brought up Erick Whitaker. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm not the one either.
Okay, I don't know who Erick Whitaker is, but yeah,
I'll send you links.
He's a big orchestral acapella choir dude.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact that the two music majors failed to bring him up that's a massive failure on our part.
It is.
Well, the stream's not over, and you said his name, so good job. You saved it.
So no, Erick Whitaker. I would be flattered, for example, if Erick Whitaker wanted to do his own version of, you know, Chant of Immortality or whatever. It's like it's one of my most popular songs, but still. I believe that his version and same thing happened with what's his name, Sam Robson. Like he made a different version. He made a very, very, very different version of Chant of Immortality. Sam Robson is a popular YouTuber. He never released this song because it was a commission for someone special, but he made a really, really awesome version of Chant of Immortality. I'm rambling, but still, if somebody big and famous or somebody with a professional studio wanted to make like a really, really, really good recording of one of my songs, I'd be flattered. I'd be like, yeah, go for it. You know, I wouldn't feel like just because I'm not 100% professional, I wouldn't feel like, you know, I wouldn't be offended by the fact that somebody wants to improve upon my recording just because it's amateur, you know, still considered amateur, just because I don't have all that, all the equipment and all everything that I need, or all the skills and mixing skills. I know mine sounds good and mine sounds pretty professional, but it's not the 100% professional like it should be, you know.
I didn't mean to call you amateur. Like that's not what I was getting at. We were just talking about like covers and everything. But
right.
But like that does seem to work really well if the person doing the covering is of a higher status, we'll say, than the content creator.
Sure.
Then that is like kind of a flattering thing. Ooh, somebody way up there wanted to use my stuff. They must see something in me. But like, I guess my point is that two artists of equal stature, it would almost certainly irk them if you use the word improve to describe what you did to their song. If they are
so, yeah.
Now, Goonie, that's great, and I'm happy for you, and I'm gonna let you finish. But the original version of "The Way She Flies" is the best Brony song of all time. Fight me.
All time.
Yeah. Now then. Let's get on to now that I've punched our guests in the face. Let's get on to the audience participation segment. So, if this is your first time tuning into the show, all 13 of you, I've been watching the chat. We've been watching the chat, I assume, the whole night and taking note of your questions and interesting comments. And now we're gonna read through them and give a little bit more context, or give a little bit more to the discussion here. Ariel Warner says, I've heard from some people as well as certain media say that country music is annoying, and I never understood why, and I still don't, because some country music hits me right in the feels. I will say this.
Agreed.
Yeah, like old school country music, Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash are always the first names to come to mind. Reba McEntire, that is like the old school is what I believe the best. I believe that country music has become too similar to pop music in that it's very homogenous. It's all this, and rap
Pop
music and rap music to a degree. It's all about the same stuff, and it all sounds exactly the same.
I can actually add to that if I'm allowed to. Here.
No, please do.
So one of the reasons I grew up listening to like all kinds of music, but one that I didn't enjoy listening to growing up, I liked Garth Brooks and like Johnny Cash, but there weren't a lot of country musicians that I actually enjoyed listening to. My wife has introduced me to a lot of other things since then, a lot of other country musicians since then, but honestly, I can as someone who kind of gets that perspective, I can tell you that the one thing that always bothered me, that always turned me off of the message from the song, was the twang. Like it always made it feel like it wasn't genuine for me. Like it felt like everything was like the enunciation was exaggerated, and the notes, and especially the scoop at the beginning of every note, that kind of thing. When
I see Cordero's comment in the chat going, I got friends in low
they did seem to lean into country music did seem to lean into it like later in it. But if anyone in this chat or listening right now likes rock and roll music in any form at all, think country. There was a time when country and rock and roll were indistinguishable. They were the same genre. Yeah, all rock and roll owes its roots to country music and bluegrass and slave song. I can bring out my music degree. It all comes from the same place. And there was a time when country and rock and roll were the same freaking genre. So like they all come from the same place. And there's a lot of really, really good country. A lot of even in pop country, there is some good gems out there. Like Garth Brooks, I would say, is one of them. Yeah. Tim McGraw has a lot of great music. There's great music in country music, including pop country.
Case in point,
almost any genre.
Case in point, Leonard Skinner. Am I wrong?
Oh, there you go. Oh,
Eagles.
The Eagles.
Yes. If you want actually I guess you could say modern-ish rock country song, I would actually recommend checking out 30 by Twisted Sister. Dee Snider appeared on this now canceled CMT reality show called Gone Country, where they took a bunch of celebrities and they had to write a country song. And Dee Snider made one called 30, and despite the audience really liking that song, Julio Iglesias Jr. won.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'll just take your word for it.
I mentioned about country music in particular that doesn't really, well, and I'm sure this does apply to other genres of music, but I feel like country is kind of the standout. Like, you go up to a person and you ask, what kind of music do you listen to? I feel like a lot of people, like, in this generation will say, oh, just about everything except country. Like, that's country in particular.
Rap,
yeah, rap is another one kind of in there.
Everything but rap, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's largely a product of the fact that rap and country music are a lot more signaling specific lifestyles and upbringings than I
cultural
feel like
experiences. They're rooted in very specific cultural experiences, and the sound isn't relatable. Just the sound of the music isn't relatable to a lot of people.
Exactly, yeah, and I think when people, they say like, oh, country music sucks, that isn't music. I mean, I feel like that's just somebody's, it's just their, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I guess their ignorance as to the significance of music and the upbringings. Like everybody has their own story, everybody has their own upbringings, like their own way of life, and a big part of that is their culture, their music, and the culture that is depicted by that music.
So I gotta go ahead.
Not everybody's truck breaks down. Not everybody's girlfriend leaves them, and not everybody's dog dies. So yeah,
I've had all three of those things happen just recently, as a matter of fact. But
show me the dog.
But yeah, I haven't had a dog in several years.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, but
that's the meme of
whose dog did you kill?
No, fun fact, my truck did break down like last week.
It did. It freaking
did. So I got
a minivan, I thought.
You know what I meant. There's something I'm curious about here, just real quick before I move on to the next question. Goonie, you said that you didn't like the twang of country music. Did you mean the vocals or the instrumentals?
The vocals.
Okay, because I was gonna say, if you meant the instrumentals, I was gonna say you're talking a lot of trash for someone who wrote Emerald Eyes and Chasing Fate.
Oh, I know. I didn't say it's something that I didn't like growing up. I've become accustomed to it now. I actually really like Randy Travis and Garth Brooks. I love what's the name? I actually like the dude Josh Turner, the one who's like that deep voice and everything.
I don't know. That sounds like something my second favorite Brony musician would say.
Good for you.
And pay no mind to me. I love Emerald Eyes and Chasing Fate. I can't listen to Chasing Fate while I'm driving anymore, though, because the last time I did, it hit me so hard I almost crashed. So let's see here. Brianna Zachary says, "Forever Free Brony, I love your music. I love the song. Hallelujah." So just a little comment I wanted to read for you there. Badre Bally says, my philosophy regarding music is simply I don't care what music quote-unquote experts say about a song. If I find it listenable, I will enjoy it, which I believe was Cruiser's large point tonight. Am I correct in that, Cruiser?
Basically, at the end of the day, music is just auditory stimulation. And depending on how you were raised, your lifestyle, where you're from, like there's so many factors in what goes into makes music, what type of music is enjoyable for someone. So to say that something sounds bland, boring, or generic, I think is, well, for one, I think it's way too loosely. At least in music.
So, if I hope you don't mind me airing out some of your dirty laundry here, Cruiser, but you came to me earlier this week with help on your video. You wanted to know what to say to a music critic that would say, oh, this music is terrible, but then turn around at the end of the video and say, listen to whatever you want to listen to. And I had said something along the lines of, it sounds like what you want to say to them is either be more consistent or give your review more using more subjective terminology. We had a conversation like that, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so is that about right in terms of how you feel?
Yeah, I'd say so. For those who want a bit more context, I see a lot of music critics who will say, "Hey, enjoy the music you like, support the artist. And yet, however, the critic is always disappointed that these are the artists that we like. So what are you saying here? You're giving me mixed messages.
Yeah, we had the same problem in early Brony analysis where every week, every analyst would come out with their video on why the episode sucks. And after 10 episodes in a row, it's like, do you even like the show?
The biter problem.
Yeah, well, Biter, Digibrony, and Brony Curious had that same problem. Freaking Theory Brony was one of the worst at it. Let's see here.
This is taking me back.
Yep. Some old school beef we got.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old.
I always wanted to go up to Biter and be like, dude, who is making you do this? Blink twice if they have you locked up. Like you don't have to watch the show.
Let's see.
I actually have something to say about. I guess a lot of something that I've noticed is that a lot of prejudice towards certain genres of music actually comes from the messages that some may typically hold. Like, in a typical 90s family, the parents would encourage their kids to listen to wholesome music, or I don't know, if maybe they're a Christian family or something, but they would encourage their kids to listen to wholesome, easy listening kind of music because it can usually contains some sort of positive message or something like that. But like, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this.
My father.
And then Nirvana happened.
Yeah,
yes.
My father would down talk all the metal that my older brother would listen to, the Korn, the Disturbed, the Slipknot, as well as the rap, like the old Wu-Tang Clan, and all that. He would talk down their subject matter so much, and then we'd get in the car and he'd put on AC/DC.
I just think it's
Who are
just
those
the
dirty deeds
subject.
done with, Dad?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Loving an elevator.
That's Aerosmith.
Something? I always get the two of them mixed up. I really do. And
Really?
yeah, I did it. Oh my God, I did it one time. Cordero and I were hanging out with our group making dinner, and I said something about I tried to make a food pun. I said, we had Aerosmith teach us to walk this way for Chinese food, and they were like, that I got it right that time. Well, the last time I said AC/DC then, and I was like, gosh, freaking darn it, that would have been so funny if I didn't screw it up.
That's funny.
It's a weird two bands to mix up.
Well, they both begin with an A. I can understand that sort of, maybe.
I always mix up Christina Aguilera and Eminem. They just sound so similar.
and the host of the show outs himself as a filthy casual.
Yeah.
T Marsh won. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to finish the point. It's just that, like, just because certain music tends to convey or certain genre tends to convey a certain message, doesn't mean that they're all like that. Like, for example, perfect example of this is Crazy Train. It's totally considered it's borderline metal. It's borderline metal. But like the song itself is a very positive message. It's just like people are messed up. Literally the line is maybe it's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate. Yeah, exactly. So like, I don't know what I guess that because they get bad vibes from the music, that they think that it's always like that, and so that's why I think a certain prejudice comes towards hating certain genres. That's just a point that I wanted to make that came to my mind earlier.
Now that reference was going off the rails.
Ha!
I don't have my good keyboard here. I would have done a rim shot.
Yeah, like every single genre has weaknesses or failings, or you can point out to it. And when music doesn't connect with you, that's all you can see, or that's all you can hear is the weaknesses of it. And and if something talks about sex or drugs or one subject too much, you're going to focus on that. But if a genre of music that you like also gets into sex and drugs and all of that stuff too, you're going to excuse that because you see the value and the artistry in it because it does connect with you. So that's where that double standard comes from in people's personal taste.
Yeah.
T-Marsh says, which is the most annoying song in or out of the MLP fandom? Goonie, why don't you start us off on that one? The most annoying song in the...
Pony Girl.
Oh.
My gosh, I'm sorry I had to say it. You've heard it before? Pony Girl?
Yeah.
No,
is it just like bona fide Barbie girl, or
It is.
Oh my god, I don't need to hear
There's
it.
a huge animation to it too.
I just
looked
it up.
It's so popular.
You know, I haven't
my
even
gosh.
seen it, and I was gonna say that this question, like the question in general, kind of defeats the purpose of the entire podcast. But I'm willing to make an exception for that, just because I hate the idea of it.
It's so annoying. Look, the animation is great, and it's kind of funny, and the idea was clever. But oh my gosh, it's in your head. So
I was gonna say Baby Shark because it's in or out of the fandom. Because, like, you know, who doesn't despise Baby Shark?
Oh my god,
that's a very cold take.
I had to like hold myself from getting triggered when you said Baby Shark, because a couple of months ago I worked at a wedding. I was taking pictures of the wedding, and they unironically played Baby Shark, and the whole dance floor just flipped out and was.
I didn't know they let 4-year-olds get married nowadays.
The adults were so into it, and I'm like, dang, I didn't know we consumed that much alcohol. The bar is not yet dry. So
can't people just have? Geez, what a grandpa shark! Can't people just have fun, Brawny?
I would. You know what? Cordero, I haven't heard what you think yet.
Yes, you have. But about what specifically?
The most annoying song in or out of the fandom.
Oh yeah, I memed. I put John Cage's 433 in the chat, which is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. I'm sure, was that the other music major?
Yep. See, that's the one I can never remember what it's called or who did it, but like I always know like the idea of it and that it exists.
Oh my god, music teachers just cream all over themselves of how clever and subversive John Cage is for. It's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. Don't you get it? It's so deep. It's such a critique of music. The performance is the audience reaction and the uncomfortableness of the era. It's stupid. It's a stupid joke. John Cage is not smart. He's not clever. He's not even a fucking musician. I hate John Cage. I hate modernism in music. Everything after Theory 3 is terrible, and fuck music school.
If I wanted 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, I'd call my ex.
Cruizer, your most annoying song.
Okay, this song is not necessarily annoying, but there was something about the reaction that just kind of drove me crazy. That was Gangnam Style.
Definitely overplayed.
Gangnam Style was one of those songs that fell in the special group of songs that I hated at first and then slowly grew on me to the point of unironic enjoyment.
Well, because this is my thing here. Now, the song on its own, it's fine. I'm against it. Yeah. But what drove me crazy was there was this huge trend in music where the only thing you needed was just a catchy hook and a couple of random buzzwords. And people, and me, my background with rock and going into heavy metal, they tried to at least be a bit more than that, and people keep complaining that you can't understand a word they're saying. But tell me one word in Gangnam Style besides the chorus.
Hey, sexy lady.
Besides the chorus.
That's the bridge.
Yeah. You know what? Funny. Here's something I'm really annoying outside of the fandom. It was what does the fox say? Because
why did you remind me?
I thought that the verses were actually pleasant. You know, it was clever too. You know, just naming off animal sounds. but the most annoying part was the chorus. Like, I could not stomach it. I was like, it's just this guy making random noises, and it doesn't even sound that well mixed either. It sounds.
You'll never forget it, will you?
no, I hated it. That's why I hated it. Yes,
Bad publicity is still publicity.
I know it's so well. It's good publicity, but it was just made my ears bleed.
I would say just in general that the most annoying Brony music is most of the Brony music with lyrics and vocals, because I don't think Bronies have very many vocalists, but there's an awful lot of us that try to sing.
That is true.
Yes.
The thing with Brony music that bothers me the most is when particularly female singers sing in an attempt to imitate the characters. The Uncanny Valley ruins it for me.
Just don't, please. No.
Just use your actual voice.
Do you really need to call out Eileen Monty like that? Like, you just really got to go after her?
I'm glad you said it before I did.
You're welcome.
She's good at that, but no.
She is good.
No.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: is I've always felt she was talented, but needed direction. I felt like she always tried to sing outside of her range, and it always just sounded a little off pitch or off key to me. I'm not sure exactly what the word for it. She did a really good job on Not Much to Miss, though.
Yeah, like,
she is really good.
Because it's her actual voice, you know, like Not Much to Miss. Strangers with Scratch 21 is an incredible song, and it's just Eileen Monty singing with her normal singing voice.
Well,
yeah, her normal singing voice is really good.
And I think you know, I'm not just trying to butter you up here, Goonie, I promise, but I think...
Oh my goodness, what a fanboy.
I think the directing has something to do with it, because I don't think Chi-Chi sounds very good on her own either, but Chant of Immortality is freaking amazing as well.
Well, I'll tell you one thing one thing that's outside of both of their what is it? If they do stuff on their own versus doing stuff with somebody else, with a musician, the musician is in control, and the musician has the power to do whatever the heck they want with the vocals. And so if they know their stuff and they know how to mix vocals, and they got all the tools to make it sound good, you know, melodyne everything up, just that. Then the voice is going to sound good, of course. Mm-hmm. But like, there's some songs that, like, for example, I don't know if anybody remembers Feather, but
oh yeah, I really like Feather's voice.
Yeah,
but the thing is, our collaborations never really got anywhere because of the fact that I didn't have the right tools back then to make her voice sound good. Because she had a really good sounding voice, and it sounds great live. But there's something about a studio recording that requires so many different things for it to be pleasant to listen to, and it makes you want to listen to it more. You have to have, otherwise it doesn't sound, it doesn't captivate people. You have to have pitch correction on modern recordings, otherwise people won't like it. Or you have to be right on pitch, and most Brony singers aren't. The only one who can kind of get away with it is Eileen Monty, depending on the song, because she does have really, really good pitch control, and you can tell she's probably professionally trained. But
yeah, clearly,
but the fact remains that, like, people like Chi-Chi, if she does a song on her own with no musicians' help, it usually doesn't turn out that well, because there's just that little bit of a musician's touch, or a mix, or some sort of, you know, artist's touch that they're lacking in professionality. So honestly, I didn't even mix Chant of Immortality. I had Rain, Snow, Hail mix, and she did an incredible job. She put melodyne on everything, on all the voices, and that's why it sounds so good. But like, the fact you have to tune it, you have to use some sort of tuning tool to make a vocalist sound good in a studio recording, because if you're focused on the recording, that is, you don't want to hear any mistakes. If you're at a live show, you don't care about the mistakes that they make unless they're like blatant, you know. So that's the difference between, you know, the studio recording versus live show versus you know, a vocalist who's just a vocalist and doesn't have that kind of the equipment that a musician would normally have. But that's why Aili Monty sounds really good on my songs, and that's why Chi Chi sounds good on my songs, but not necessarily all the time in their own little vocal covers or whatever.
So
that's a really good point about live versus studio recordings. Like we ran into that wall at music school. Is like a lot of ensembles that are really, really good live, especially in a big, well acoustic hall. It sounds so good, but then you try to translate that music into like a studio recording, and it's really, really hard. Like some music just sounds better live than it does on a recording, and the same thing with some artists voiced. They sound really good on stage, but it's hard to make. You need a really good engineer to make them sound good in the studio. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, what's the point of the recording, right? What's the point of the recording is to have that you want it to be iconic. You want it to be the one thing that people listen to remember the song. If it has if it has any, if it sounds out of tune for some reason, people are going to remember it for that, or they'll forget the song because of that. It's just like it's not. But versus a live recording, that's the main difference, is because if you want somebody to have something on their little device, and that's the one thing that they have to remember the song with, it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect in every aspect.
Yeah, in the studio, you can't be flat on the big high note near the end of the song. It has to be perfect. Whereas in a concert hall with concert hall acoustics and a great performance and a great atmosphere, that little bit of flat can be hidden and forgiven live, but that it's completely barren and exposed in the studio.
So
now here's something cool about that. That means that if you find a live recording, or if there's a live recording of a song that actually became more famous than the original recording, that means that actually that's a show of true talent right there.
So let's see here. Bigorna says, my hot take is that the Living Tombstone remix of Discord is worse than the original.
It's simpler. It's not worse. It's just simpler.
Okay, but Bigorna is trolling.
It's very stylistically different. I mean, you kind of took, like, you took Odyssey and you took Eurobeat, basically, which is so different from...
I see Cordero in the chat fighting with Bigorna. Cordero, you're as a fellow professional troll, I'm surprised you're taking his bait.
We all took his bait pretty hard. This guy is saying that the remix is worse than the original Eurodance version, and he said in chat that the entire genre of Eurodance is terrible. We just got hardcore trolled.
I haven't said shit.
What is it with you?
What, Bigorna? I'm talking about Bigorna.
Yeah. What is it with you lawyers that like trolling so much?
I'm a rules lawyer.
Yeah, it was, and Bigorna is also, like, he's actually in law school. I happen to know that. But
cool.
And Princess Heather Blossom says, I haven't heard of Pony Girl before now, but now that I know about it, I want to jam with it. But we don't take Princess Heather Blossom's opinion seriously. She likes my cover of I Believe in a Thing Called Love. So
to the rhythm of my heart.
Yeah.
See, I'm just the visual of like Brawny and Heather like in a bed together. While Heather is just like jamming out to this song, and Brawny is just like laying there on his side with his pillow around his ears, just like rocking back and forth.
She will jam my version of the song and thinks it's better than the original, and I'm like, no, like, I love you, but no. To give you some perspective there, Goonie, Heather Blossom's my girlfriend. I'm very likely going to marry her, so there's that. Right. Let's see here. What else do we have in the chat? I just saw something.
Brony, I have never heard your Thing Called Love cover, but I can promise you I hate it.
Yeah, I promise you I hate it. It's really bad. Paladin Pony T says, question for 4Everfreebrony. I really like your song Little Librarian. What made you want to make that song?
So the reason why, so something that not everybody knows about me is that I'm a member of the LDS Church, or a Mormon, and I went on a mission. I did the whole 2 year, leave on a mission, go to the different country, whatever. And while I was there, I wrote in my spare time. I wrote over 100 songs, and in those 100 songs was included a few parodies. That happened to be one of the parodies. Little Librarian is a parody of the really famous song American Pie, and I got the idea because Weird Al did a funny one, and I figured we could use a more heartfelt ponification of the song that's supposed to be like the Brony version of the song. And I had this album planned where I wanted to make a bunch of these really, really famous songs and make them all retell the story leading up to the first episode of the show. And so I did that. I did it with American Pie, which turned into Little Librarian.
Mm-hmm.
I did it with a Stairway to Heaven, which turned into Many a Lifetime. And then I also did it with Hallelujah, which stayed Hallelujah. But, they all told the same story. It was the way they worded it. And the only one that didn't actually get popular out of all three of those was Many a Lifetime, the Stairway to Heaven parody, because I didn't quite publicize it as well as the other two. I wasn't as excited about it. It was probably one of the most. I kept really, really, really close to the instrumentals for both Little Librarian and Many a Lifetime. But
everybody go to Goonies Bandcamp and buy Pony.
Pony is my parody album.
With an I.
Pony with an I at the end. It has all my parodies, but yeah, that's the reason I made it, was because I wanted to retell the story of the first episode, but in 3 really, really well-known songs that are all minutes long.
Let's see. Let me do 2 rapid-fire ones here before we get into the last couple of real questions here. Bigorna says, the good thing about metal is that you can sound like you're choking on a potato salad sandwich and it will sound good. Cruiser, what do you think about that?
A lot of truth to that.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, this nerve just had a cold for 20 years.
To be fair, it does take a lot of practice skill to actually be able to scream properly.
It really does.
Believe me, I am with a lot of people saying like the screaming needs to stop. I can't understand what you're saying. Like I get that, but it still takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. And there's even some really horrible screamers.
Well, there was
the growling technique, which I believe is what the term is called. The growling technique is actually a real vocal technique that can be taught, and it actually is respected amongst vocalists. And there is a safe way to do it that it doesn't hurt your voice, and it is a real music technique.
Yeah.
I can't stand listening to screaming because I don't know. I tend to be wholesome in my music genres, but
funny for some reason.
You heard it here first.
Well, I was going to say that there's a couple ones that I actually thoroughly enjoy. Like the first one that I actually really, really enjoyed, I was like, wow, that's a good scream. The first one was the scream in Half Beast from Gato Paint.
Oh, good song.
It goes, that thing, or whatever. I can't do it very well, but yeah, I was like, that was really cool.
There was also a few months ago when Cordero had COVID, and at first he thought it was just a cold, and he was walking around like, nothing wrong with me, nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, I could have led for Disturbed for those 2 weeks.
Let's see here. Speedy says, does anyone else here ever think of Undertaker choke slamming Brawny?
I'm thinking about it now.
I'm sure everybody in here, with the exception of maybe Goonie, has thought of choke slamming me at least one point in time in their life.
I'm going to try that next time we spar. I'm going to go over the choke slam. I got the flying knee on your brother.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you did too, and that was impressive. Okay, but that's another story for another time. All right, let's see here. We do have one more serious question.
Ronnie, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up one thing, because it's one of the reasons I brought this up to begin with. The topic. I should have fitted in earlier in the main thing, but the example I wanted to give has to do with orchestral music, because orchestral music is both immortal and dead at the same time. And here's my evidence. How many people here consider themselves, say they listen to orchestral music on a regular basis?
Hello.
I do. Yep.
You do? Yeah.
Symphonic metal, does that count?
No, like orchestra, like symphonic orchestra.
I make it too.
And you make it too, yeah. Well, like this is a music panel, but like a lot of people, like if you bring up the idea of orchestral music, they'll be like, yeah, I respect it, but it's not in my iTunes playlist, is what most people would say. But then at the same time, most people have seen movies and most people have played video games. And the modern iteration, and this isn't even a new thing, this is decades old. The modern iteration of the orchestra is in film score and video game score, and it is alive and well and thriving. And my experience in music school and the classical music, the actual like live orchestral world of music, snubs their nose up to all film score and video game score. They do not consider it the continuation of the orchestra, even though that's exactly how the orchestra is surviving and thriving. And this is the elitism that has been stuck in my brain that I'm talking about. Is the actual orchestra community laments at how people don't go to the orchestra. They don't want to hear the old standards, the old classics. They don't want to watch conductor brilliance, and they don't want to see the orchestras perform live, and they just don't care anymore, and it's fading away, and they don't understand why it's fading away, while at the same time right in front of them is film and video game score, and they don't give a crap. In fact, they look at these film score and video game composers and they call them plagiarists. They call them thieves. They say that they steal themes, that there's nothing original, and they're burying their heads in the sand. And they're basically trying to kill their own art form, while their actual art form has carried on without them for decades, and they don't even realize it. And that's why elitism in music is awful.
Yeah, I would take it a step further and say it goes back even further than that, because I think if, in general, people enjoy visual mediums, typically people enjoy visual mediums as well as auditory, but visual mediums even more. I think
have you heard of opera?
Right, I think it goes. That's what I was going to say. It goes even further back than just not wanting to go to the orchestra and watch people play instruments. That's why we got theater, and that's why we got ballet, and that's why we got opera, like you said, and that's why some of the best concerts I've ever been to have been people with a really good stage presence, like ZZ Top or Rammstein. Or if we take it to the Brony side, Jeff Burgess has a really good stage presence. Silverhound has, and Eurobeat Brony both have extremely good stage presence, where it doesn't matter what they're doing, you're watching them because they got 125% effort into it.
Yeah, the interesting thing is like oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. Somebody else go.
Okay,
I'll
go. Go for it.
I was just gonna say that one of the main differences between like old classical pieces and like modern soundtrack kind of music is just it's not really like it's kind of an unspoken thing, but in my opinion, the more modern soundtracks for like video games or movies, they genuinely are kind of, they're easier to play than old classical pieces, because they do tend to follow more modern patterns, which also goes back into the 1-4-6-5, the four chords of pop.
Yeah.
But older classical pieces, they don't follow it as much. They're still there. They are the roots of it, but they don't follow it as much. I would say that the main reason that, not maybe the main reason, but it's just one of the reasons why you don't hear it so much in orchestral concerts, is because it's easier to play. It's something that everybody would recognize, but it's not going to be something that a classical violinist would be invested in because of the fact that it doesn't help them improve. You know, that's just one perspective.
That's one perspective, but like, take the composer John Williams, for example. Everyone knows John Williams. Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones, like so many amazing scores that John Williams has done. He is called a plagiarist at music school because some of his themes sound familiar to Richard Strauss and Gustav Holst and all these other composers back in the day. Gustav Holst, who made the Planets symphony back in 1919. It's basically the proto-modern film score symphony, where, like, if you listen to the Mars Movement, that's basically every action film score you've ever heard in your life is based on the Mars film score. And a lot of things from these composers of late 19th, early 20th century really inspired a lot of 20th century film score. And for some reason, the classical music community just decided that it was plagiarism instead of building on themes and leitmotifs of the past to create things that people recognize that fit with the visual medium. And I don't know. I just don't understand where the disconnect is. Instead of John Williams being praised by the orchestral community, he's scorned as just this charlatan who does cheap pop stuff. Even the late Hans Zimmer, like, nobody gets respect from the orchestral community, and it really pisses me off. Which is why I brought up this debate tonight.
That makes sense.
What'd you say, Cruiser?
Well, he said the late Hans Zimmer. Did he die?
Yeah, didn't he die?
I don't think so.
Sure.
He had a masterclass, didn't he?
Who was I thinking of?
I'm googling him. If
Hans
the
Zimmer,
Wikipedia says it was
he
versus
did
is.
Sherlock Holmes. Did Sherlock Holmes soundtrack, Batman Begins. Did a lot of them. He's really, really, really famous.
No, he's alive.
Oh my God, who's the one who died? Somebody big died, and I can't remember who it was.
I don't know. Look up
the
the year
composer,
2020. You'll be able to find him.
The composer of the Halo soundtrack passed away last year. So let's see here. Let me think for a second here.
That's embarrassing. Cut that out. I got the composer wrong.
I
think I have to turn on my music degree now. That's a huge fuck
Hey,
up.
well, now you know how I feel when I screwed up AC/DC and Aerosmith.
Fair. I will never give you crap about that again. I can't.
All right, thank you. Last serious question for the night here. Malik Muhammad says, what are your thoughts on auto-tune? How much is too much? I think T-Pain is too much auto-tune. What do you think? What do you think, Goonie?
I can. There's a difference between auto-tune and pitch correction. So pitch correction is where you try to make it sound natural, and auto-tune, if you're planning on auto-tuning, actually making it sound like auto-tune it. Whatever, if it sounds glitchy, that's just because it's poorly auto-tuned. But if you're supposed to sound like a robot, then do it. Do the auto-tune. But if you just want to make it sound natural, don't use auto-tune, use pitch correction. That's my opinion.
You're not Cher, get over it.
100% agree. 100% agree. Auto-tune is a stylistic choice. Pitch correction is just studio work. And as we've already covered in tonight's debate, studio work is done on everything. Studio, because it's necessary to the track. Everybody gets pitch correction or some kind of studio work. Auto-tune, as people imagine in their minds, is a stylistic choice to sound robotic. And I would argue that T-Pain, while it can be overdone, it can certainly be overdone. I would argue that T-Pain is one of the worst examples to call it overdone. Like, listen to an actual T-Pain song. It's actually a really good stylistic choice. The way he does it, it sounds very smooth, and it works very well into the type of music that he does.
Something that I want to kind of draw a disconnect to is when somebody thinks of, it's pretty well known in the music industry, the name Melodyne, right? And when you think of Melodyne, people, if a fan or if a non-musician might think, knows what Melodyne is, but hears it, right? The first thing that they might think of is, oh, that's auto-tune, right? I just want to draw a disconnect there. Melodyne is not auto-tune. Melodyne is pitch correction.
Okay.
So, yes, Melodyne is pitch correction. Auto-tune is its own thing.
Cruiser, what do you think?
First of all, auto-tune does not turn you into the perfect singer. I think a lot of people have this idea that auto-tune is just a cheap way to not take lessons. That is not what it does. It does not turn you into a vocal rock god.
Yeah, it takes it when you're like 5 cents sharp and makes you 0 cents sharp.
I mean, unless you're Daft Punk.
Yeah, auto-tune or pitch correction cannot replace talent. Like that's factual for the most part.
If you want a good example in the fandom, though, Crusader actually does both. Crusader has there's some songs where he purposely makes it sound like autotune because he uses autotune, and there's some songs where he just uses Melodyne or whatever pitch correction tool he has to make it sound more natural.
And Caps, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the sense of autotune, if it's a stylistic choice and you're just judging something based on its stylistic choice, I think, the point of too much is, entirely, eye of the beholder, ear of the listener.
Yeah, what I tell my writing students all the time, and I don't know how well it translates to music, is what are you trying, what is your intention? What are you trying to accomplish, and how well do you actually succeed in accomplishing the feeling that you're trying to create. I did say that was going to be the last one, but then Bigorna dropped this one, and I'm super interested. What genre do you guys wish Brony musicians made more of? For me, it would be speed or power metal. For me, I wish I had more like classical sounding rock and roll that it wasn't just 4Everfreebrony or Prince whatever. Goonie, what do you think?
I think there should be more country. There is actually a distinct lack. Really. I'm one of the only ones who's actually done it. I remember that there was a little bit of like southern rock from like Haymaker, and there was a couple little things here and there, but there was never actually a musician who was ever actually, except for if you consider Woodlore country, I don't think he is. He's more southern acoustic, whatever. But there's never actually been a musician, except for one, who was dedicated to making more folky country sounding music. And I think that there's a distinct lack of it because of that.
that
would you consider Miracles to be a country song?
Oh yeah, totally. It's totally country. Miracles is totally. Actually, I purposefully did not sing that. I didn't think that I would sound good. I discovered later that I actually sound decent singing country. But one.
Warmth is you, isn't it?
Yes, but that was me trying to be more southern rock, and I know that country is supposed to have sort of a more drawl to it. For southern rock, you don't necessarily have to have a drawl, or you don't have to have the twang. You just have to have a gruff-ish sounding voice.
I do agree with you that the twang should sound natural. If it does sound forced, it's a forced country twang does sound really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I figured it out. It was James Horner. James Horner is the one that died in 2006 of Apollo 13, Jumanji, fame. Yeah, Titanic, Deep Impact, like Braveheart. James Horner's the one who died in like 2016. That I messed him up with Hans Zimmer. There we go. I had to figure it out.
Cordero, what genre do you want to see more of in Brony?
Freaking everything.
Even trap music.
I loved the burst of pony music from 2011 to 2014.
There's not nearly enough house.
Okay. Listen, I loved the trap. I love the trap and house music that came out. I really think that was kind of the forte of the Brony fandom, especially at the peak of Brony music. And I wouldn't hate seeing more, but I do agree that it kind of did hyper focus on those genres. And I would love to see more variety. I would love to see any kind of resurgence in Brony music because, I mean, compared to the heyday, obviously, it probably will never get back to that again. But I would like to see the scene continue and thrive and to see more cool stuff coming out of it, especially with Gen 5 coming out. I'm really hoping to see a fandom resurgence in Gen 5 in every aspect, including music.
Here to build off of that, I'm plugging Ponies at Dawn. Everyone, please go listen to Ponies at Dawn. If you've never heard of Ponies at Dawn, you are missing out on so much. There's a lot of electronic music, but actually there are little gems in there that you can find that are like actually really, really, really good songs.
Paint the Moon Red. Paint the Moon Red from last year's album.
Gosh, that was
great. Got Princess Heather Blossom and I into swing dancing. Like, we want to learn swing dance choreography now because of that song.
I think I'm on their YouTube page right now. Ponies at Dawn.
Yeah, Ponies at Dawn. And they release albums probably semi-annually. It's a big compilation of Brony musicians coming together to make like 70-track albums. So it's basically Balloon Party from back in the day, but like
I remember
way
that.
more consistent. Yes, it's way more consistent, and we publish a lot of music from all different kinds of artists. My biggest one on there is I have Love. That's where that one came from, and then I also have Daybreaker Boogie with L Train. That one is
both are great songs.
Yeah, the Paint the Moon Red was actually basically a sequel to Daybreaker Boogie.
Cruizer, what do you want to see more of in the fandom?
Psychedelic polka.
Psychedelic?
Yeah.
I've never even heard of this.
You're joking. I'll take it.
Pink Floyd, but Weird Al style.
Oingo Boingo.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Oingo Boingo Boingo with Pinkie Pie.
Oh my God! Please no. Let's. Okay, so and then last two not so serious here. Ariel Warner says, "Bye, Brawny. BTS rules. You get out of my chat with that cringe."
He did like an hour ago.
I know, but still.
What was BTS again?
It's K-pop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Korean Backstreet Boys.
K-pop is fine.
Let's see here. Nate just stole your waifu. I have systematically poisoned the dinosaur's water supply. Okay. Yeah.
That was
Too late on that one, bud.
Yeah, I know.
That was a stream crashing troll.
Yes. So, all right. Now that's Goonie, thanks for joining us tonight. Give us some final thoughts and tell us what you learned.
I learned that a lot more people are actually a little bit more concerned about the fact that some music is underappreciated, and many artists in specific genres are actually a little bit scorned when they shouldn't be. Like the whole orchestral thing. I thought that was honestly probably could have been the most important point if we talked about it more. The whole orchestral classical pieces versus more movie soundtrack stuff. I think there's a huge prejudice there that needs to be dissolved. I don't know what their problem is, but I think it's something that definitely, I don't know. It's like not, it's unhealthy to say the least. That's something that I learned, and also that a lot of people really like Linkin Park.
Well, these three guys really like Linkin Park, and I used to like Linkin Park. Guess which?
Never the biggest fan.
And then you turn 19.
Guess which two albums I got?
Really good ones.
Yeah, Cruiser. Final thoughts, and what did you learn tonight?
There was a lot more that I wanted to talk about. That's for one. Second is if you're listening to a music critic, you don't really need to hear a whole lot of them. Just ask for their score, their initial thoughts, and then you decide the rest.
All right. Cordero, final thoughts and something you learned.
I learned that I am still the only fan of Reanimation by Linkin Park. Everybody slept on that album or actively hates it. I'm telling you, as a grown adult man, go back and give Reanimation a listen. It's musically interesting. It's a really good take on their first album, Hybrid Theory. And as a guy who has a degree in music and was taught to study music from like a fundamental analysis standpoint, it's good music. I promise. You might find something you missed.
All right. And
this message brought to you by Linkin Park. Join them on Patreon.
Caps.
With their fan club, bitch.
Caps, give us something you learned tonight and some final thoughts.
I learned that Linkin Park is good according to people with college degrees.
Actual facts.
But no.
And BuzzFeed writers.
Well, sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Oh, geez. Okay, I'm done talking about Linkin Park tonight.
Sure. 2 weeks from now, Linkin Park debate.
Oh, my God. Okay, so, Goonie, thanks so much for coming on with us tonight. Did you have fun?
I did. It's been super fun.
Yeah, we went on way longer than I expected to, man. I hope that's not a problem. I hope I didn't eat up your...
Not a problem at all. I
All
was
right.
told maybe past 2 hours, so it's fine.
Yep. Alrighty then. So thanks to everybody who came out and watched the show tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Big shout out to all of my generous supporters on Patreon who help make this content easier to make. And especially those on the $10 and up tier, such as the only guy who likes Linkin Park's album over there, as well as Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministry, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Sodden Girder, Senko, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, Stephen A. Wilson, Rein-Kun, Princess Sunshine Sparkle, Bootleg Bard, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. One of these days I'll get through the list without stuttering. If you would like to get on the show, I would love to have you. Let's just get you on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You get into the server. If you want to hang out with me some more, tomorrow night I'll be on Princess Heather Blossom's stream, reading the chat for Chaos and Crocheting. And then next week on Friday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be doing Friday night fights where my patrons will pick a game that I can torture myself with for an hour. Say goodnight, everybody, and have a great weekend out there to all of